Okay, let's jump right in. We've got our hands on a really dense, um, a fascinating monograph that's trying to tackle one of the biggest questions for India today.
Its identity.
Exactly. Its core identity. The research basically argues that India, or Bharat, is in the middle of this profound identity crisis. And it claims the only stable way forward is for the Republic to recognize that it was, is, and, well, must remain a Sanatan nation.
It's a huge claim, a very demanding one. And our mission in this deep dive is to unpack that thesis. The author gives us 4 pillars to look at.
Right.
We have to look at deep time, then the living cultural grammar, the constitution itself, and finally the ideological challenges India is facing right now.
It's about connecting the ancient past directly to, modern governance. The idea that stability comes from rooting the state in its own heritage.
Precisely. A modern, rights-respecting state, but one that knows where it comes from.
Before we go any further, we have to define that key term, Sanatan. I think for a lot of people listening, that word has become very political.
It has.
Or it's seen as just a label for one community. The monograph pushes back on that hard.
It does, and that's the most crucial distinction to make up front. In this context, Sanatan is not a religious label. It's defined as a civilizational canopy.
A canopy.
Or, and I like this analogy, think of it as the subcontinent's deepest operating system. It's this worldview with many, many layers, and its ethical grammar shapes how most people across different faiths think about life and duty.
So it's the inherited moral furniture, things that are just there in the culture.
Yes, exactly. We're talking about core ideas like dharma.
Right, conduct, cosmic order.
And ahimsa, which is non-harm, nyaya, or justice, and seva, selfless service. These ideas are the default vocabulary for morality across the entire subcontinent.
And that's what gives this operating system the ability to hold so many different groups together.
It's rooted in a very deep philosophy. The foundational principle is ekam sat vipra bahudha vadanti.
Truth is one. The wise describe it in many ways.
And that one statement is the umbrella. It allows for completely different paths, jhana, the path of knowledge or bhakti, devotion or karma, which is action.
In different schools, too. Jain, Buddhist, Vedic.
All of them can coexist and feel legitimate within the same civilizational space. It's pluralism by design, not by accident.
Okay, that sets the stage perfectly. Let's get into that first pillar, deep time. The monograph says Sanatan civilization is way older than the timelines we usually see.
And challenging those timelines is about reclaiming the narrative. For decades, the story was that Indian civilization was a late bloomer, maybe starting around 1500 BCE.
The colonial era scholarship.
Right. But the monograph argues if you combine evidence from texts, from the sky, and from the land, you can show continuous complex life going back much, much further.
And the main tool for that is archaeoastronomy. How exactly does looking at the sky help you date a civilization?
Well, it's pretty ingenious. You take specific references in old texts, mentions of a solstice, an eclipse, maybe a very specific alignment of planets, and you use modern software to see if those things actually happened in the sky thousands of years ago.
It's like a cosmic fact checker.
It is. It's a powerful check.
So give us some examples. Where does this push the timeline?
Okay, so a good starting point is the Veda Gotya. It's the oldest text we have that's really dedicated to astronomy and linked to the Veda.
Right.
The descriptions in it of how the calendar works and the position of the solstices, they fit the sky from around 1400 to 1200 BCE. And you have to remember, that's not the start of the tradition. That's when it was already a complex, codified science.
So the system was mature by then. And what about the epics? The Mahabharata and Ramayana?
They are just overflowing with astronomical data. And when researchers feed these observations into planetarium software, they get some startling results. For the Mahabharata, the dates for the war often cluster around 3067 BCE.
Okay, that's already pushing it back.
But then you have more controversial work, like from researchers such as Nilesh Nilkanthok, who look at things like the Arunhati Vasiha star pair, and they push the date back even further, sometimes to 5561 BCE.
Wow, and Aramid goes back even more.
It does. The most ambitious dates, based on references to pole stars and precession, could go as far back as 12,209 BCE. Now, regardless of which exact date you land on, the point is the civilization itself believes it has this deep, deep antiquity. It's not a recent thing.
And this isn't just based on texts and stars. The archaeology and geology back it up.
Yes, exactly. The soil tells a similar story. You have sites like Marigar, which show continuous farming communities from the 7th to 5th millennia BCE. The material base for a high civilization was there.
And the famous Sarasvati River.
That's where geology is so important. Studies of old, dried-up riverbeds, paleochannels, confirm that the Gagar-Hakra system was a massive flowing river in the 3rd millennium BCE.
Which would have supported the huge Harappan settlements.
Absolutely. It makes the textual accounts of the mighty Sarasvati River totally plausible.
And then there's the Ramasetu, Adam's Bridge.
Right. Geology shows that this chain of shoals between India and Sri Lanka emerged naturally as sea levels changed after the Ice Age. It provides a real landscape that fits the Ramayan story of a causeway. It all just fits together.
So ancient roots established. Let's move to segment 2. How does this living Sanatan grammar show up in, 21st century India?
It's the very fabric of daily life, the living matrix. Start with the geography itself. India's physical map is also a sacred map, a Devabhumi.
Well, land of the gods.
And you see this with the pilgrimage circuits, the chardams in the 4 corners of the country, the Jyotirlingas, the Shakti Pithas. They physically and spiritually weave the subcontinent into one single sacred space.
That's an incredible idea, that you internalize this vast geography through devotion. And it's not just for one group.
Not at all. The sacred map includes Sufi dargas, Buddhist stupas, Jain tirthas. A pilgrim's route can easily cross between sites important to different traditions. It builds this shared sense of place.
And that sense of shared place becomes shared behavior.
It does. Most Indians, whatever their formal religion, operate within this culture. You see it in life cycle rituals, the sanskaras, and most of all, in everyday ethics.
You mean concepts like dharma, karma?
Exactly. Dharma, karma, punya, pap, moksha, seva. The monograph points out that even many Indian Muslims and Christians use this moral vocabulary because they've lived in this Dharmic environment for centuries.
And the year itself moves to this rhythm.
Correct. The public calendar is basically a Dharmic calendar. Navaratri, Deepavali, Holi, Pongal. These festivals structure our sense of public time as a sacred cycle.
And what holds it all together across all the different languages?
It's a shared ethical lexicon. Whether you're speaking Hindi or Tamil or Bengali, words like dharma, satya for truth, ahimsa, prem for love, they all carry a very similar, powerful moral weight. It's the common language of the civilization.
Okay, so the culture is ancient, coherent, and it's everywhere. Which brings us to the big aha moment the monograph talks about. How does all this fit with the modern, supposedly secular republic?
Well, the argument is that the coherence was baked in from the very beginning. And you can see it, literally see it, in the original Constitution.
You mean the physical, handwritten document from 1950?
That one. Illustrated by Nandalal Bose and his team. It's a civilizational artifact.
It's not just decorated, it tells a story.
It tells the story. The 22 illustrations show India's journey from the Indus Valley in Vedic times through the epics, the Buddha, Mahavira, the Sikh gurus. But it's where they place the images that matters.
How so? What do they frame?
The really important parts. The chapter on fundamental rights, individual liberties, is introduced by a picture of Rama's return to Ayodhya.
Symbolizing Ramarajya.
Exactly. And that's not just good government. It's an ideal where the ruler's duty, dharma, is to protect the weak and restrain his own power.
And on the other side, the duties of the state.
The directive principles of state policy. That chapter is framed by Krishna giving the Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. It evokes wise counsel, responsible action, fulfilling your karma against all odds.
And the state symbols, too.
The Ashokan lion capital is the emblem, and the motto, Satyameva Jayate, truth alone triumphs, is from the Muttaka Upanishad. It's all there.
So it's visually a Dharmic republic. Why the secular mask, then? Why did that word even need to be added?
That's the core of the dissonance. The monograph suggests it was added much later and under very specific circumstances. It was the 42nd Amendment in 1976, during the emergency, that put socialist and secular into the preamble.
So it wasn't a founding principle, it was grafted on later.
Correct. The original Constitution already guaranteed religious freedom, but adding this imported European term created a kind of structural imbalance.
How so?
Well, Indian secularism often ended up meaning heavy state regulation, but disproportionately focused on Hindu institutions, temples, for example, while many minority institutions were left with more autonomy, so the Republic ends up speaking this borrowed language that doesn't quite fit.
Which leads us straight into the ideological challenge, segment 4. And here, the monograph is very careful about making distinctions. We should be too.
Absolutely. The text separates 3 things. First, Islam as a global religion. Second, Indian Muslims, who are incredibly diverse communities, and many of them supported a composite nationalism, Muttahida Qawmiyat.
United Nation.
Right. And third, there's Islamism, which is defined as a modern political ideology that wants an exclusive Islamic state and rejects non-Islamic framework.
So that idea of composite nationalism, the one that lost out, what was that vision?
It was championed by groups like the Jamiat Ulema-e Hind. Their view was that Muslims could and should form one single nation with Hindus, Sikhs, and everyone else while keeping their religious identity, a shared democratic framework.
But the two-nation theory won the political argument.
It did. Islamist ideas, pushed by the Muslim League and ideologues from groups like Jamaat Islami, prevailed, leading to partition.
So in today's India, where does the clash happen?
It happens where radical groups like the band Simi or various jihadist networks openly reject the Indian constitution. They use violence and refuse the basic idea of a shared civic space for everyone.
So it's a clash between a worldview that accepts many paths.
And one that demands one exclusive path. That's the fundamental conflict.
Okay, so what is the Dharmic response to this? The monograph calls it open-handed but straight-backed.
It's a balance, firmness and fairness. Straight-backed means that violent insurrectionary groups have to be prosecuted under the rule of law, with due process. But the open-handed part is just as critical.
Which is?
The state must absolutely avoid collective punishment. You cannot treat all Muslims as a suspect community. That would violate both Dharma and the Constitution, and it would just validate the extremists' narrative.
That sets up our final segment perfectly. If India embraces this identity as a Sanatan civilizational republic, what does that actually mean for laws and government? Is this a theocracy?
No, absolutely not. The monograph is very clear on this. This is not a theocracy. There's no rule by clerics, no religious test to hold office. It's a constitutional state that just openly acknowledges its ethical source code.
Dharma Nyaya.
And Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. The world is one family, but the laws are still public, reasoned, and apply to everyone.
And this leads to some big policy proposals.
It does. First, a uniform civil code, or UCC. But a carefully designed one, phased in with consultation, so that all citizens are treated equally in personal matters, like marriage and inheritance.
And equal treatment for institutions, too.
Yes, even-handed regulation. All religious institutions, Hindu, Muslim, Sikh, Christian, should have to meet similar standards of transparency and accountability. No more structural asymmetries.
What about for people in power?
That's the idea of Rajadharma. Public office has to be seen as seva, as service, not as a chance for power or privilege. This idea should drive reforms in the judiciary and civil service, embedding duty back into the system.
And finally, this goes beyond law into education.
Right. Civilizational literacy for every citizen. The idea is that everyone, no matter their personal faith, Muslim, Christian, atheist, anyone should learn India's civilizational story, the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, the contributions of Buddhists and Jains.
But as shared cultural literacy, not as forced religion.
Exactly. It's about making sure every citizen understands the deep cultural story that connects them.
So we've gone from deep prehistory through this living culture to the complexities of the Constitution. India got political Swaraj self-rule in 1947. But what the monograph is arguing for is a kind of swadharma.
An order that's aligned with its own ethos. It's an act of, honest naming, acknowledging the pluralistic reality that's already there instead of trying to wear borrowed ideological clothing.
So if India can actually do this, if it can ground its modern rights-based democracy in these native concepts of dharma and nyaya, what could that mean for the rest of the world?
It could offer a new path. So many countries are struggling to connect their heritage with modernity. If India can show that a vibrant, diverse democracy can draw its ethical strength from its own ancient, non-Western civilizational ideas, it could be a powerful model.
A model of civilizational democracy.
A civilizational democracy for a very fractured world. And that's the big, provocative thought this deep dive really leaves you with.